Welcome everybody. Today is Thursday, February 15th. It's about 2:15 p.m. We are having a Planning and Zoning Commission special meeting today. We have on our agenda, we have it's only a general meeting. Our meeting was canceled earlier this week due to the closing of town hall and the storm that hit the area on Tuesday. So we are doing this meeting via Zoom on a virtual basis. I did not want to do a public hearing over Zoom, so there was supposed to be a public hearing on the night of February 13th. So that public hearing will get rescheduled to a different date. It was a pretty important one with ADUs, and I want to make sure people are there in person to talk. So let's get right into this meeting. The first item on the agenda is deliberations and possible decision regarding the following: coastal site plan review number 379, flood dam prevention application number 441, landfilling, excavation and regrading application number 4562, site plan application number 311, and that's known as PL 23-191, Town of Darien, Great Island Accessway at 0 Great Island Road. The proposal to replace and widen existing entry accessway driveway between Rings End Road and Great Island Road cul-de-sac to provide for two-way vehicular flow and public access between Rings End Road and the larger Great Island property to the south, and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The work includes the addition of a sidewalk, landscaping, lighting, draining, and other ancillary improvements. The hearing closed on January 30th, 2024. In our packets or electronically, we received the draft of the resolution, which is dated today, February 13th. Adam Boldrack, who's not here today, he submitted his comments earlier in the week. And that was his comments earlier were reflected on item number, Item J as in John. And it had to do with some of the curbing and whatnot that's in there. What did I want to talk about? We got, in terms of this, we have other local approvals that are already done. If you remember, we did a mandatory approval on this, saying it's consistent with the town plan to develop and do a major improvement to the road or an improvement to the road and provide better public access to the coastal waters in our town. It was also approved by the Environmental Protection Commission. They approved it on February 7th, 2024. It was also given a administrative approval certificate that was recorded for the record. It's dated February 7th, 2024, with other comments related to the proposal. That was obviously architectural items that we're going to incorporate into this. It was presented by an engineer, which is Redison Mead, and it was reviewed by professional engineer or third-party consultant, Joe Cass at Tyne Bond. What else do I want to get into? We got the cut and fill. It's only 50 cubic yards of fill to complete the project. The one item that I wanted to double check on is on page 5, number 27. It talks about the lights, where there are going to be 4 lights. I don't recall, Fred, if we've ever put in there the color of the light bulbs or the wattage. I guess we really didn't make it that specific. It says a warm color hue and then the 3000 K. Is that something that they presented? I didn't think they picked it yet. Or where'd you get that from?
That information was provided as part of the application materials. There is no, this isn't related to a condition of the approval, so they wouldn't necessarily be required to install the 3000 K lighting. As we note in finding number 27, it was just presented as part of the application materials.
Okay, in that same application materials, did they say that the light fixtures would be 8 feet? Or they left it open, I know verbally, but did they say in the application it would be 8 feet tall?
They did leave it a little bit open. Again, one of the things they're trying to do is match the best they can what's existing out at this, and has been existing out at the site for many, many years. And to try to match it exactly could be very difficult and or very costly. So they are in the process of trying to match, and I think that's what the ARB talked about is on page 4 of the ARB letter. The ARB specifically said, this is the fixture we would like you to try to match.
Okay.
Which that's the page. And so there is no specific requirement, but the ARB was fairly clear. We're aiming for something that looks like this, and whether that's 6 foot or 8 foot or 7 feet, the exact height is uncertain at this time, but it won't be a bollard 2 or 3 feet high, and it won't be 12 feet high.
Okay, so did they commit to saying it's going to be over 8 feet up to 10, which comes up later?
It was clear that that is the range. They don't have an exact style or dimension picked out, but they didn't want them too tall and they didn't want them too short.
Okay. All right, so we'll get that on the back end.
I think they were aiming for a residential application, right? So
That's what they said,
yeah, something that would, something that would typically be seen on a residential property as opposed to a commercial parking lot or something along those lines.
Okay. Then on number 30, it talks about the curb cuts. It says that we're not requiring the curb cuts to be installed as part of this application. It will they'll be figured out on lots 7 and 8 with the adjacent owner at that time. So that comes up later too. So on their plan, on their plan, they said they know they have to put in curb cuts, but they didn't lock them down to where they're going to be, right?
Yeah, certainly that's because it's on the neighbor's property or right up to the neighbor's property. They need to consult with the neighbor first. And certainly the goal of the town would be to do it at the same time, and the desire of the town would be to do it at the same time. If the owner says, I'm really not ready, then it's not fair to the town to put the whole project on hold pending the owner's, I'll use the word whims, or the fact that the owner might not be ready. So that's why we didn't really want to make it an integral part of the approval. And that's why if you look at condition L, that although the commission's approving them, there's, without the owner moving it along of the adjacent property, that there's no requirement that it be completed as part of this project.
Okay, because that comes up later too. All right, moving on to the resolution part. On number E as in Edward, we just talk about, it's called parcel 6. Is that lot 6, what we call it the other time?
I think we could certainly change that to lot, since we're using the word lot in other locations. That would make the most sense.
Okay. And then we talked about J as in jump, where Adam put his stuff in. If everyone might have seen that already. Any comments on that? We can look at it. K as in kangaroo. It said that all lights shall be between 6 and 10 feet. So obviously 8 feet's in the middle. I mean, to your point, I don't want to tie them down to a specific model or specific height. If they find one that's like, 8 feet 2 inches, and we knocked them to 8 feet, that's going to be a problem. The next item, the final curb cut shall be subject to the administrative review and approval by staff of the planning and zoning department. So that's exactly what is the proper thing, in my opinion, relative to those curb cuts. And those are pretty much the things. So I think the only edit I really had was changing that one word parcel to lot. Mike, you want to go next?
Yeah, I'm good. I didn't have any comments. I read through it. Looks good to me.
Okay. Amy, anything from you?
Yeah, I like Adam's addition to strongly encouraged. I could even be comfortable with best efforts, but I'm not going to wordsmith on the I think the information and the intent is clear that that's something that we feel strongly about. The only other thing that I would add is we did not have anything about parking in here. But George had made a comment during our last session when we were deliberating, and I think it might make sense maybe to add something to say, interim parking will be provided at Pear Tree Point, or something of, permanent parking will be heard under future application, something to that effect. I don't know. We were discussing it and it's incredibly silent. So I just wanted to say whether it's add something in there to say interim parking to be handled at Pear Tree Point, beach, public lot, permanent parking to be, designated under future application or something. So so we're not totally silent on it. Just my thoughts.
Where do you think we could put something like that? We're going to put that in.
George, you might have made a comment that was a little bit more eloquent than what I just said.
No, but I'm with you, because if it goes unstated, then who knows what will happen. People may park any old place they like. So I think a simple statement that it is anticipated that any parking for the Great Island area will be located at Pear Tree Point Beach and until further application.
You want to do another subheader on the first part before public comment? Something like that we acknowledge that there's currently some parking on the island, but not a significant amount.
Yeah, I suppose we should be referencing, more, I don't know, any kind of group, because inevitably there'll be a car or two parking on the island. But
yeah, I don't necessarily want to imply that there's some gray room for parking on the island, because I think it's clear that we don't want that at this point. So maybe we limit our remarks to, interim parking is Pear Tree Point Beach, and future applications will until otherwise designated under future application. Something to that effect.
yeah, I think that works. Yeah. I'm sure Fred and Jeremy can find the right place for it.
Okay. How about where it says traffic and signage? In that section, maybe add a sentence or so, because the traffic reports represents a hypothetical 100 spaces on the island.
Sorry, Steve, where are you?
On page 5, underneath relative to like 29 and 30, the traffic report, which is referenced here, on 29 from Hardesty, Hanover, has a hypothetical 100 parking spaces on the island. That's what they did this traffic study on. So you can put a sentence in like that, not in recognizing it. That's what they did their analysis on. We realize that there's not 100 parking spaces there now. And so,
but Steve, I think it's best to put it under the now, therefore be it resolved portion.
agreed. No, agreed. I would put it both places. I'm trying to figure at the first part at the beginning, because they opened it. They talked about it there. So you have to do it in the first, and then you have to add to the second later. So you got to add it in both spots. You got to introduce it in the beginning, and then resolve it at the end.
Jeremy, just change that section to traffic, signage, and parking.
Yeah, I think adding the word there is a good one, Mike, where we can just say traffic, parking, and signage.
Yep.
And then add, as you said, a new number, and just acknowledge that there is no new parking being proposed as part of this application. Rather, for the interim, the public will be able to walk in and park elsewhere. However, it is anticipated that in the near future, the town will come forth with a subsequent application for parking on the island.
Do you want to say, what was I thinking? Oh, also, do you want to add the part that there's going to be no parking on this road? You can do that on the resolve part.
Yeah, that we could certainly say something in the condition of approval, add a new condition number F or C or whatever, and then, new condition, no parking on the road.
Okay. Is that a good idea, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, if there's been reference made that parking is available at Pear Tree Point Beach, I would like to designate that and be consistent with that messaging that has been given to the public already.
Right, there is certainly parking available there, but I would presume people maybe, who knows where people may park, at a friend's house nearby. Certainly they may have other places that they can find, other than Pear Tree Beach. I don't want to, but I think we want to acknowledge that there is no new parking created as part of this application, maybe the right phrase.
And there's no parking allowed on lot, 23AA. Or 23A.
Yeah.
Okay.
Should we just say the town designates Pear Tree Point Beach as the parking for Great Island until
Well,
further provided?
that made it into the newspapers. And when we had our meeting, I think the paper came out on Thursday. I saw it on Thursday and our meeting was on Tuesday. So that's where I first read it. But I don't think we discussed at the hearing that it's going to be at Pear Tree Point. I mean, I said something about it, but the applicant didn't say anything about it. And then it made, the front page of the papers twice.
I wonder if there's an issue of the parking permit. You'd have to have a beach permit to park at Pear Tree, and I suppose there are people in town who don't have a beach permit and might want to go to Great Island.
Right.
Well, and again, I think that's why we might make reference to under future application, that we are anticipating that, the town will be directing what under future application, that this is a growing pain kind of thing.
Right, anticipate a future town application for parking on the island.
You're going to make that like a new 32? Or a 30 after 31?
Sure, on the island. Yeah, I guess that is a succinct way of saying we kind of see what's coming next.
Yep.
And it acknowledges that there's no parking on the road.
Yep, no.
And if you want a good verbiage, go back and watch the Vimeo. George said it beautifully, the turn of phrase that he had used. So
Wish I could remember.
go back and watch the Vimeo.
Wow.
Jamie, any comments on this?
One quick question first. I did watch many of the Great Island Commission meetings, and I'm just there was some discussion. Are they planning to keep the island open to pedestrian traffic fully during construction? And if so, does there need to be any additional language about safety provisions in that case?
It's what they said at the meeting is that the island's going to be open while the road's being constructed, and we assimilate it as similar as I-95. If there's two southbound lanes, they do one lane going southbound, and they finish it, and then they move the traffic over to the other lane. So we're always going to have one lane going up while it's construction. But we didn't, at the time of our meeting, there was no announcement that the island was open to the public.
I understand it's kind of the same right after. Okay, that was my only question.
Okay, thank you. George, you're up.
Just a nit, the version I have is now dated February 15, today's date, and there is reference to the date of today's action in P in the resolution of February 13. So Fred will want to correct that or update that. That's all from me.
Nice.
Thank you, George.
Sure.
I don't see that on mine. The date of action on mine says we're at 15. Okay. All right. So
Yeah.
we did the first half where we put it in, changing that one subheader to say traffic, parking, and signage. And you're going to add something there. Do you want to add something to the now, therefore it be resolved?
Right, so we have a new header on page 5, and then a new number 32 on page 6, right before the existing number 32. And then, as you said, you wanted to put in a condition under, say, a new letter C or a new letter AI at the bottom of page 7. And you wanted that to say, there shall be no parking in the driveway?
Yeah, you can do that.
Because that the whole point of this is to create 2-lane traffic, and we don't want that beautiful Belgian, that antique curbing to get, destroyed as people are pulling up and trying to park on the sides of the road, or worse, parking on the neighbor's property. They pull up on the side of, on the sidewalk or on the neighbor's property that's not even owned by the town. So yeah, you can't have parking along that stretch. It just isn't feasible.
As you said, the intent is two-way traffic flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it talks about the stop sign having to be consistent with the manual of uniform traffic control devices, but I don't ever remember us talking about having signs on the road that say no parking.
Yeah, there's always that balance in terms of what the police need to enforce and what we want to kind of keep it a nice rustic country, not cluttered with signage. And we leave those details usually for the police and public works to kind of work out what do we need, just the minimum amount of signage to do the job and be enforceable and not be overwhelmed with signage.
Okay. And then you want to add something to page 7 or 8? You're gonna figure that out?
I'm thinking maybe put it, Fred, under at the bottom of 7, maybe I.
HI, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems like it would fit there.
And what wording are you gonna propose?
the wording I have is the intent is to create two-way traffic flow. There shall be no parking in the driveway.
And what about it?
They've been calling it an accessway, I think.
Accessway. Thank you, George.
Yep. And then are you gonna put something in there, and we think there's gonna be a future application for parking?
We could repeat that. We have that down in 32, but we could say that.
No, you don't have to repeat it again, as long as it's in 32.
Yep.
Well, the 32 isn't part of what we are determining, or saying is our resolution.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, they put it in I too.
Okay, so we could add it here. Anticipate that there will be a future application for parking on the island.
I mean, it's really more of a finding than a condition.
That's what I thought. That's why I only want to put it
Right,
in.
unless the commission feels strongly about it, including it as part of I feel that there's no need to restate it there.
Yeah, I would keep it as a finding and not as a condition.
All right, I was just thinking of it as a condition because we wanted to indicate that people should park at Pear Tree, but since that may not work anyway, I guess finding enough is enough. Finding is enough.
Are you on board with that, Amy?
I guess so.
Okay. Mike, you're good, and Jamie, you're good? Yep, okay. All right, so do you want to just tell us what you put in on 32, Jeremy, and then tell us what you put on I as in I?
Sure. For 32, the commission anticipates a future application for parking on the island. As for the new condition I, the intent is to create two-way traffic flow. There shall be no parking in the accessway.
Sounds good to me. We all set? Okay,
Just Jeremy, just for clarification, is I going to be under stormwater management or are you going to change that title?
I think we should change the title and just add the word parking.
It's fine.
because yeah, I is right now landscaping, so you're renumbering the whole thing. HI. Okay, with those 3 edits, I would entertain a motion to approve as edited. Mike makes a motion, looking for a second. George makes a second. All in favor? That's 5-0. Motion that's taken care of. Fantastic. Alrighty. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have minutes from January 16th to go over. How much time we got left? January 16th, we talked about Hoyt Court. We went through that whole thing. We talked about the pool over at Long Neck Point, for a new pool. We talked about a house that Amy Zapatakis brought in on 244 Long Neck Point, where they're putting in that house at 500 square feet is in the flood zone. What else? We have a resolution from the Parks and Rec on the beach over at Weed Beach. And then I think on the back end, we talked about other stuff. Any questions, comments, typos, Scrivener's errors on this one? Amy's good. Jamie, you okay? James, okay. George, you good?
Looks good.
Mike, you're good?
I'm actually abstaining. I wasn't there.
Okay. With that said, can I have a motion to approve as submitted? Jamie makes a motion. Amy makes a second. All in favor? That's 4-1 or 4-0 to 1 with 1 abstention. Okay, next item on the agenda is minutes from January 23rd, 2024. It was a continuation which got punted of the Smart Cloud car wash. Then we did Quick Court again. We did what, a ramp or a boat dock over on Brush Island, on 29 Brush Island. We had another day for the 7 Sedgwick property. I guess that was actually the first on 7 Sedgwick. And then we had the resolution, which is the glass and mirror people over on the Post Road. Can't change that. We had 258 Long Neck Point resolution. We can't change any of that stuff. Then we had a couple deliberations and a chairman's report. Questions, comments, typos, Scrivener's errors on this one?
I'm abstaining
Good.
because I was at that meeting, so
Did you watch it on TV?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
So you can approve the minutes or you can abstain.
Okay, I'm approve.
Looking for a motion to approve as submitted. Mike makes a motion. Amy makes a second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 0. All right. Next item on the agenda is the chairman's report. The only thing I want to say today is, and maybe it's a question for Jeremy. It's all over the news today that the town of Fairfield did a permanent resolution to not have cannabis in their town. They were extending a moratorium year to year to year, and then I guess they made it permanent this week. Do we need to do something like that?
It's a good question, Steve. Town council and I have spoken about this numerous times, whether the town officially needs to do something or not. Because it has been our continued belief that the town of Darien and its history has never allowed such a use. Every few months I circle back to town council on that question, whether it would be prudent to make it very clear. We do get inquiries once every month or two from either potential dispensaries or people who are keeping track or tabulating or whatever. So let me circle back to town council based on what Fairfield did. And I will let the commission know council's recommendation, whether a vote on a confirmation that we have had a ban and continue to ban it, would be necessary.
Okay, because it's part of the news report. It said that Fairfield did it permanently, and they said the other towns have also permanently got rid of, has said no to them, or, you know, they mentioned Westport, they mentioned Wilton, you know, the usual ones in our peer group. My thing to you is whatever makes your job easier.
Thank
If
you.
you want it in black and white, that it's black and white, and people don't ask the question, or if you want to just keep it the way it is, whatever makes your job easier. Because if you have to interpret every time, you know, and defend yourself, that's no fun.
So the way it is, as I understand it, is we're not permitting any cannabis sales in town, but that's based on it is not specifically permitted as a use under any of our zones.
That is my belief, George, is, and again, numerous conversations with town council on this, is the way our zoning is written in Darien, any use that's not specifically permitted is prohibited. So for example, we don't allow zoos. It's not a listed use in the book, and if it's not in the book, it's not allowed.
What was
Marijuana
that
dispensaries,
example?
not in the book, not allowed.
I couldn't hear
zoo.
that example. What'd you say? If
A zoo,
Is it-
Z-O-O.
A zoo.
a zoo. Oh, sorry. Okay. Right. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
again, I'll continue, as Steve suggested, is making sure this is buttoned up the best it can be buttoned up and clear, the clearest it can be.
Yeah, whatever makes your job easier.
Well, no doubt that means we ought to amend the regs just for the simple statement, I would think, but
Okay,
I mean,
Whatever.
there's certain, I mean, when I look at zoning codes for other towns, and it's not necessarily in Connecticut, it's all around, it says like in this zone, you know, it specifically says that these things are not they are prohibited. You know, it's in black and white. I mean, I just did one that was in Monroe, and this guy wanted to build self-storage, and it says in the Monroe zoning code, you cannot have self-storage in this zone.
interesting.
And I said, okay, you can buy it for whatever you want to, but you can't build what you want to build. So
Okay.
whatever you want to do is fine.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Other
Jeremy,
item-
I'd be in favor of affirmative language, because someone's gonna come in and claim it's retail. I just looked at I looked at an article on Fairfield, and basically what they're calling it is a retail use, which is a permitted use in a lot of our zones. So I think if we did an affirmative ban, probably makes more sense and makes your life a lot easier.
Yeah.
If that's what the commission wants. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to retail sales of marijuana in town, but
I will say this is, my phone rings a lot, and Fred, I can't speak for Fred, his phone rings a lot. I have not gotten folks who say, you know, we really need to allow this in Darien.
Yeah.
Either from an elected official, appointed official, or even a resident.
And one on the same note, on one aside, there was a thing, and I brought it up once before. It's called Kettle and something. It's a cannabis dispensary that's on Research Park on Research Drive. I don't know what happened, but there's a sign out front that says building for lease. So I don't know if they're going out of business, or they're moving out of there, or they grew out of it, or they're shrinking out of it. I don't know, but whatever it was, it says it's for lease. Or maybe they're closing. I don't know.
Yeah.
And
The
just
other
to
item-
muddy the waters, there's a fair demand for medicinal use of CBD and whatnot. I don't know whether that's contemplated by what you're talking about or not.
I think you can buy that today at Greaves. if
Can
I'm
you?
not mistaken.
Okay. So we have to be careful with the language.
Yeah.
Correct, correct.
If you guys look at that, there's definitely a difference between medical and recreation.
Yeah.
The only other item on my list, and I want to see if we can just put it on your list, Jeremy and Fred, is propane gas tanks in front yards. I want to do some kind of, you know, review of that to make sure that if we're going to put propane gas tanks in front yards or visible from the street, that they're buried. My neighborhood does not have propane gas, or does not have natural gas. And you know, I think all the houses that get renovated put in propane tanks, but most of them are buried. And I know that's going to pop up in other towns, like in other areas like the Bay. So I'd like to look at something like that to make sure that these things don't pop up in people's front yards. Okay. That's it for me. Anything on your list, Jeremy, for director's report?
No, our next meeting is the 27th, Tuesday, the 27th. which will be the public hearing, a continuation on 7 Sedgwick. It will be the, I'll call it the main agenda item that night.
Okay. And do
Just
we
as a
have-
reminder, I'll be out that night.
Amy's
I'll
out.
be absent.
We are also working on rescheduling the public hearing on accessory dwelling units. Tentatively, it looks like March 12th. Fred and I are going to get started on finalizing that date next week, but right now it looks like March 12th.
And I don't know if you saw that the people from Desegregate Connecticut also send an invite out to that, which is kind of cool. If they want to show up at our public meeting, they're more than welcome. What else? So you have that date, and then anything special on March 5th?
A little uncertain, it's one of those meetings that, depending on how things fall, it could be a very quiet night or canceled altogether. We're still uncertain on March 5th.
Okay, fantastic. This is a special meeting, so we can't have any other business. So anything else that either anyone wants to talk about that falls within the director's report or the chairman's report? If not, then we would entertain a motion to close. George makes the motion to close, right?
Yep.
We made the second. There you go. Yes, all in favor? Thank you, everybody. Glad we got this in.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Take care.